Hi, folks, and welcome to Direct Kicks. Should be a fantastic show today. And as you can see, I'm a little bit cold and need some warmth. So today we're going to do some soccer stew. That's right, soccer stew. What do you need for soccer stew? Well, ingredients, really important ingredients. Stock. Well, we got perfect stock in our guest tonight, John DeBenedictis. We can't wait to talk to him. But what else are we going to put in the stew today? Well, a little bit of nutmeg and a pinch, more than just a pinch of passion on today's Direct Kicks. All right, folks, as I said, John DeBenedictis on the show today, and we're going to invite him into our amazing vintage video vault. John, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hey, listen, this is going to be a lot of fun because we have such an amazing history. When we started the show in 1997, I can't think of anybody that supported our show more than you. There were a lot of people that saw the show and really enjoyed it, but you really jumped on board, and we've had a really nice history in the last 25 years. And it's, you're part of that soccer stew, my friend, and a big part of it is passion, right? So you've tell us and tell the viewers a little bit about the history of you in the sport of soccer.
Well, certainly. Thanks, Scott. I started out as a player, obviously. I think most of us started out on the field and then worked my way up to coaching. And I was fortunate enough to coach a really good team back in the 80s. And I brought my players up to a level where I had one player training with the old North American Soccer League team, Toronto Blizzard. He was going to be like their first round draft pick. And then in 1984, the league folded. So what do? You love the game. You want to stay involved. There was no coaching opportunities because I had also worked my way into some clubs by presenting my players, and hopefully I would latched on somewhere in the U.S. or somewhere. And then I started a soccer store to stay in the business called Metro Sport, or at the time was JMT Metro Sport, and but I also got involved through our former national coach, Tony Waiters, who brought me on board for the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada, which he started in '94. And so, I've kind of done a little bit of everything from, soccer business in the retail area, coaching. I've always stayed involved in coaching. And then I even ran a soccer show for about 4 years. And I've always been an advocate to try and promote soccer in the media, which I think is lacking here in Canada. And Scott, when you started your show and got it on City TV, I believe, I thought that was fantastic. And, credit to you for working hard to get that going. And that really helped, I think.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we needed support in the community, and we certainly got it from you guys. We mentioned, and you mentioned JMT Metro Sport. That was just every soccer player in the Toronto metro area had to go to your shop or one of your many shops to get the cleats and stuff that's needed, or the kit, right, from the national team that you were supporting. Ironic, 20 years later, 25 years later, those shelves are stocked with Canadian jerseys, aren't they? Or at least the need for them and the want and desire from Canadian soccer fans, because we've seen quite a whirlwind in the last couple of months with the Canadian men's national team. You must be in awe and must be pleased by what you see based on the years that you've been in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to see Canada in a World Cup, that's just fantastic, isn't it? And to see us compete, I mean, if you think about it, not only did we come in first place in our group, but, we represented ourselves fairly well in the World Cup. I mean, we lost just by that one goal. We should have scored on a penalty kick that might have made it a tie game at least. Against the second-rated team in the world. And then the next two teams we played, I mean, okay, Croatia, we got a good start, and we could have gotten even another goal there, a couple of chances that were missed, and that might have changed the game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Morocco, we gave up a bad goal, and that could have been a tie. We hit the cross. But, Croatia and Morocco, are played in the semifinals. So two out of the three teams that Canada had to play are semifinalists, and the other one was rated number two. I think we did quite well. Can't complain.
Yeah, well, and there was a lot of complaining, wasn't there? A
Too
little bit too
much.
much, a little
Yeah.
bit too much. But that's just human reaction, I guess, from people that twisted their ankle jumping off the bandwagon. But that's all right because they can fake their injuries too. But no, they did really well. I was really proud of the team. I was screaming like a maniac, and I've shown some videos. It's the first time in 20 years that I've been able to yell and scream. Well, not really, but on camera. I used to actually have to keep it cool because I almost considered myself a journalist for a bit, and so it was nice to see when Alfonso Davis scored that goal. They called 911 on me at the local bar because I lost my mind and had to talk them out of it. So yeah, it was great to see. I think that they performed very well
Yep.
and admirable. And I think that in essence, it's really a good foundation for 26. It's an important foundation that we created and they created, and we're just the guys that are supporting them as best we can, right? So yeah, I think we did fantastic, and I'm proud of them, and I think that there's a lot of work to be done. And I think that I always pat the women on the back too, because they're the ones that actually were the ones that helped show the way. And so now it's our turn after the World Cup's finished here to get to the next World Cup, which is this summer. So I know you've been a big supporter of the women's game, and how do you see that, and how do you see our team going with the women's team?
Yeah, I think the thing with a women's program is that when Canada, we won we won the gold in the Olympics, and we've done very, very well. But I think we're starting to see more and more teams, especially in Europe, take women's soccer seriously.
Right.
So at the beginning, it was the U.S., Canada, the northern countries in Europe, such as Norway and Sweden and Germany, and countries like Spain and Italy and a lot of the countries in Central America and the rest of the world, maybe except for China. China was in very early, Japan, and
Mm-hmm.
same with Brazil. But there was only a handful that the females were taken seriously. Now, every country is pushing women's soccer. In fact, I coached a player who played for the Lebanese national team. They never had
Oh
one before,
wow.
so that's Pilar Kahuri, who's actually Canadian, but she ended up playing there through her great grandparents or grandparents. And so more women are into the game all around the world. So it's going to be more challenging for Canada,
Sure.
and same with the U.S. as these other countries develop. So, but we are champions, gold medalists, and we have a lot of kids, females playing soccer.
Mm-hmm.
If you go there and you go to the indoor complexes, and almost certainly under 14 and under 50% are females.
Right.
We tend to lose females once they hit their teenage years quicker than men, unfortunately. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that we still got good numbers, and as long as we keep pushing and we pick the right players, and we'll always be competitive. I think.
You know,
Again.
the nice thing about the availability of better soccer for Canadians, females specifically, is not only the scholarship opportunities, but now they're talking with Diana Matheson and Christine Sinclair, this amazing opportunity for professional soccer in Canada starting in 2025. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's fantastic, isn't it? I think I hope they do it right and they get the right investors so the league, survives. Um, but it's phenomenal for women's players, so they don't all have to look to go south. A lot of them can stay in Canada, and for a lot of females, males too, leaving your families is not easy. So the opportunity to stay in a country and practice your trade is great, and I think that's we need that, and I'm hoping that the three major teams, Toronto FC, Vancouver, Montreal, hopefully they'll be part of it because they have the marketing heavyweight that you need behind soccer, and I think that's a big part of when MLSE. I always say Toronto Maple Leafs saved soccer in Canada by investing and starting soccer with the MLS, and they have deep pockets. No one wants to lose money, but I think if we can get them behind them and Saputo, it would be great. I think Vancouver, have they not already said that they're in
Yes, Vancouver and Calgary.
Calgary? Right. So,
Yeah,
but the
so
Vancouver is the Whitecaps, right? Is it the
correct.
right? So
So
that's fantastic.
the Belleville Lady Bombers, probably not. But that's what I was proposing. The other one was, and I know that's ridiculous, but it is kind of me, right? But how about this? The Halifax Machines.
The Halifax Machines. Okay.
Yeah. Old school,
Interesting. Old school.
Well,
Yeah.
my parents are from Halifax, so and my sister lives there,
Ah.
so I have a heart
Okay.
tug for Halifax. So, and it would be great because we've been there to Halifax and Nova Scotia covering soccer years ago, and they were just going through the roof with participation, both male and female. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
and
it's
they have a pro team in the CFL, the men's.
yes,
So
and
and
they're doing very
apparently,
well. That's the thing
yeah,
is you connect the two, right?
yeah. So hopefully it's the same group. I think it's always
That's
is
yeah,
good if the same group that has a CPL team has a
for
women's
sure.
team,
Of
or
course,
so it's positive. I'm glad that they're giving it a couple years because you don't want to rush it, you
you
know.
can't.
So that's exciting for certainly for females, and I know my next door neighbor. She's this little girl there. I think she's U14, and she's quite a player. And I can see for little girls like that, they're now having a dream. Besides, because not everyone's going to make the national team or want to go to the states. So this is a great opportunity. And you
Right.
know what? Some of our university, like our university girls who are playing even for University of Ottawa, Guelph, Toronto, doesn't matter. There's some excellent players there.
Oh yeah.
So, it's going to help our universities keep players in Canada, get an education, and then they can play within Canada rather than go down south.
Yeah, for sure. And you know that Helen Stumbos, the co-host of Direct Kick, she was a Canadian university product from
Right.
Wilfrid Laurier. She was like probably one of the best, well, certainly the best Canadian player at the time for several years. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's great soccer and a great breeding ground for some really good, next level football. And if we have a professional league, then all the better for the sport. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but let's. I want to talk about. We were talking about soccer stew, and my stomach is rumbling. And I know that you've written a book, and I don't know if it's a cookbook. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the last 9 seconds, and tell us a little bit about how that developed and what's that all about.
Yeah. So, besides all the other things I've done, I've decided to write this book, and I got a publisher called Cardinal Publishing that distributes it around the world and in the
Nice.
U.S. They're based in Indianapolis, but it's a book. So I used to play as a goalkeeper, and as a goalkeeper, I could tell you how to score on me. So when I started coaching, I started quite young. I was teaching my players how to score goals as part of every coach's job, right? And when we were with them, for 4 or 5, 6 years, you start to give them so many different advice, bits of information. And I think with the advantage of being a keeper, there's a few little things that I might know, or anybody who played as a goalkeeper might know. Um, because if you notice, keepers make decent coaches or analysts. I mean, even look at in Canada, you got Paul Dolan, who's on
Right.
on air for TSN. You've got Craig Forrest. You know,
Sure.
you've got a lot of ex keepers because they see the game differently from the back. So, maybe that's what helped one of my players. As I was telling you, the player's name about happened to be Kenny Dodd, who went played with Toronto Blizzard with Roberto Bettiga and David Byrne. He was there training every day with the Blizzard. and
Wow.
because he was the leading scorer in the National Soccer League under 18 or under 21 division. So, being able to teach a player how to score over a number of years was great. The problem is, Canada, I was really upset when Canada didn't make the World Cup. I think it was 98.
Mm.
And we had some chances. We had scoring chances. And I said, I wish I could uh, train a player. Most players have skill, right? They can pass, they can shoot, they can head. It's about decision making in the box in particular. So, is there any way I could speed up the learning process instead of taking 4 years? Can I do it in 4 days?
Mm.
Because they have the skills, right? There's some great players. So I said, I think I can, and I think a lot of it's mental and perception. I took a course at university on perception. So what does that mean? Uh, what you see, what your eyes see, what you think you need to do to score might be different because your eyes make mistakes, and we're always watching the game. When we watch the game, we watch it on television from a camera up here. So we're coaching from that camera up there
Sure.
rather than being on the field and what you see. Players moving, uh, things change. I took biomechanics, which is the body motion and movement. I remember doing one of my projects was analyzing a power kick. So I
Mm.
had to analyze an amateur and a professional. The time was Brian Budd, if you remember him. We did
Oh
super
yeah.
high speed, right? Super high speed cameras with Brian, and you could see differences, right? So putting all this stuff together, I said there's got to be a better way. So I started off with my son Joseph, who you know. Um, we had a trip to Montreal, and this is all in the book. I kind of, because it's a book for coaches, I want to explain to them how I came up with my methods.
Sure.
So the backgrounds for players, maybe it's too much information, but for coaches, it's good to know how you came up with things. So
Sure.
so I remember going on a trip to Montreal and finding a beautiful field and I started using some of the psychology stuff that we talked about, or that I like to use. And then over the week, we went to Montreal, went to New York, Long Island. We found the soccer field, and I'd go through things on, just in speaking with them. And then when we came back, right away, first game, 2 goals.
Uh,
He wasn't a scorer. He's the slowest guy on the field. He scored 2 goals in like 12 games. When he came back for the final six games of the season, I think he scored like 8 goals or something, or 10 goals, and you could
nice.
see that it worked. So then I started. Okay, I had a presentation to coaches with all my statistics and data and psychology and all that. All the coaches, oh, I want my players to come to your course, or my daughter or my son or whatever. So I ran a small course with like, I think, 6 or 7 players in my office back where
Oh wow.
where you used to come there on in
That's right.
Scarborough,
Yeah.
right?
For
Right in my
sure.
little office. I ran a little course, went to the fields. We went from the classroom to the field back. All of a sudden, this team, the players on the team scored tons of goals immediately. And then the next year, Jerry Gentile, I don't know if you remember him,
Oh, I know Jerry well.
right? So he coached the girls' team, great team, one of the top teams, and they had problems scoring, and so he wanted me to work with his players. And again, they won the scoring title. One of the players who got cut from the provincial team ended up making for the Italian national team.
Wow.
At U16, she got called to U19 World Cup team. Unfortunately, Italy had already submitted their lineup before they discovered her. It happened all so quickly.
Hmm.
So because of that success, it sounds like, my psychology that I've done, I said, let me put it into a book.
There
And
you go.
so and so I wrote a 400-page book.
Oh, 400 page.
400
Nice.
pages. I go through everything. And
Sure.
I was very fortunate. You probably know Les Jones,
Of course.
who provided tons of great pictures because I needed
Awesome.
specific pictures, and he's one of
He's
the top
amazing.
photographers in Canada,
Oh,
isn't he?
for sure. Sports
So
photographers in the world.
in the world, and he covered, I don't know how many World Cups he covered, but
Oh, I don't.
but
Too
he was
many.
able to get me some great photos, and a couple others I had to get from elsewhere. But he really helped me with the photos, which are vital to the points I'm trying to make. So it's
Oh,
all
for sure.
psychology, though.
Right.
It's psychology. It's about making the right decision at the right
Sure.
time.
And it's the last 9 seconds, you're saying.
Right. So the reason I
when you,
called it last
yeah.
9 seconds is, what's going on in the mind of the players 9 seconds or less before they get a chance to score. Where are they going? What are they thinking? It's usually 9 seconds or less. What's going on in the mind of the player in those 9 seconds? So I picked 9 seconds because if you remember the goal of the century, but with Maradona in the same
Oh
game as the
yeah.
Hand of God game,
Yes.
right? I
Yeah.
timed the amount of time it took Maradona to get from center to score that goal was 9 seconds.
Are
So
you
I
kidding
said,
me? And that's how
so,
you got that the name
so
of your book?
I picked 9 seconds. So the subtitle is "The Secrets of Scoring Goals on the Last Touch."
That
But
is
yeah,
fantastic.
so that's how I came up with the name. So in most cases, it's less than 9 seconds. Really, it's like 3 or 4 seconds. What are you doing? Where are you going? And then I look at baseball. In baseball, there's a manager that's sitting there on the side giving you all a bunch of signals to the batter to say, this is, here's the pitch count, here's the situation. You're probably going to get a fastball on the inside corner, let's say, or a curveball or whatever. So you're going by statistics and based on, previous history. So I'm like the baseball manager in the player's head. I want those powerful things of what to do, what's going to give you a better chance to score, and that's kind of how I approach it. It's all psychology. Then I even get into visualization and all the other stuff. But I mean, every time I've run a course, I've had about 309 players have taken my course over the last 10 or so years. I don't do many courses. I've had 7 players play on a national team
Oh
of
wow.
some sort, and about 7 or 8 make pro. So many get scholarships in the U.S. Or playing in Canada. This percentage of players that have done well just because of that, or even just score more goals for their recreational team. Scoring
Sure.
goals is fun. That's
It
what we
it
love, right?
it certainly is. I don't know a lot about that. I just retold a buddy of mine's when the penalty kicks came up for one of the World Cup games. I asked him, "Do you remember your last penalty kick?" And he goes, "Yeah, I scored." And I went, "I remember mine too." I shot it right at the goalie. The goalie
Nice.
didn't even move. He just caught it like he was like I was tossing him a softball, and
Yeah,
we were out of the cup. That was the
yeah,
last kick, and that was my last kick before my car
yeah.
accident. So that's the
Oh,
last thing I remember. So I should have had your book back then.
yeah, maybe, but I've made mistakes on PKs myself.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's
there was a tournament we were in Montreal, I think, in Concordia, York University. I played for York. We ended up winning a national title way back in '77, but
yeah, 77.
yeah, that's how old I am. But but anyways, everybody went through, and it was my turn to kick the 11th player, the goalkeeper, and I did what you did. I shot right at the goalie. I, I didn't even have my book then. I should have.
There you go.
But anyways,
Yeah,
missing. You remember the misses, don't you?
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that hurt because this was a keeper that was diving back and forth, and I thought, just put it right down the middle, and I just needed a shovel to dig a hole because the guys were just on my case. The guy,
Uh,
literally, honestly, this is true. As you know how you roll the ball and pretend that you know what you're doing and position the ball before you hit
yeah.
it. I was pretending that I knew what I was doing and doing that. And a guy in the back screams out, and he's this Englishman. He goes, "If you don't put it in, I'll never watch your program again." And it's like, oh, and I just look back at Johnny, thanks, man. And I shot it right at the guy.
Right. And he
Oh.
didn't move. Yeah. That's
So,
usually, usually they move out of the way for you.
yes, I
You
know.
were unlucky that time.
Right. I should have used my good foot.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so let's continue talking about because obviously based on the amount of time we've talked, the people listening are going, okay, this guy's a lifer. This guy's a soccer lifer, and I think that you are. And one of the reasons you are, besides the great game and the love of it, is that you've had really great mentors, people that have helped you out to make you love the game as much as it was in your heart anyway. And one of those guys I'm talking about is Tony Waiters. Talk your relationship with Tony, because what a great man.
yeah. The late Tony Waiters. That was a shock actually to hear when he passed away. I still think about him all the time.
Right.
He was a first class person. there's not very many coaches at the national level. You know, he played for England as a national keeper. He was in the soccer bowl. I think he won the soccer bowl, which was the old Super Bowl in the old days of when Pele was in the league. And then, of course, our national coach got us to the World Cup for the first time ever.
Mm,
And you know, I was just some little young guy, and I don't know, we just formed a connection, and he helped everyone. I guess if he saw a little bit of talent there in some way, shape, or form, you know, he was helping everyone. And you know, you talk to anyone about Tony Waiters, and he'll tell you, you know, he's first class gentleman, always gives you the time of day. It doesn't matter if you're some, you know, someone you've never heard of, or if you're an ex-national team player. You know, he was there for you, and I haven't met a nicer person. He's really helped me in my career. Um, like he ran his own camps called World of Soccer Camps, and he asked me to run camps for him in Ontario. So I was able to use Tony's name. Um, and then he also helped me. You know, he brought me on with the National Soccer Coaches Association. There's five of us that got it started, and I was one of them. He asked me to be one, along with the late Gary Miller. You may have remember him. We had a gentleman from Saskatchewan, a couple from BC with Tony, and he also promoted me and a lot of what I did, especially with my book, in the U.S. And he got me to speak. We
nice.
recommended to speak at their huge convention. And in fact, there's one time I was fortunate enough to speak after the old coach of Brazil who won the '94 World Cup, Carlos Alberto Pereira. I
Oh
came
yeah.
right after him, so he had like 1,500 people at his session, and I here's a little Canadian guy
Oh, that's neat.
who had to speak after him, and my job was to get to as many of those people as possible. So I came up with some
Right.
crazy strategy where I had everyone laughing and cheering and chanting, and people who had left ran back to see what I was talking about, which was the secrets to scoring goals. And it was the biggest audience I've had, almost 1,000 coaches from around
Oh
the
wow.
world. But Tony was instrumental in helping me out, and you know, we used to talk weekly. Certainly before his passing, and I always remember Tony when we had our chats, and that was with our little group for the NSCAC. Um, at a certain time, says, "Okay, there goes the dinner bell. Time to go have my sherry with my dinner." So
Nice.
um, always and full of stories. So
Yeah.
Tony was first class, and you know, we actually did as with the National Soccer Coaches Association. Can we had a session, which is online, where Tony we brought Tony in to talk with some of his ex players. So Bobby Leonard Duzzi and Carol Valentine are all there, and we
Nice.
reminisce. And he kept saying, you know, when's Canada going to get back in the World Cup? Are we good enough? And for him not to see what that we're there,
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him. But
Yeah.
first class, yeah.
Yeah, he certainly he was a big friend of the show. He really helped us out getting clips whenever we were, whenever he was needed, he was there for us.
Yeah.
And to have a legend on the show is just another notch for us. Eh?
Right? He'd give you the time of day, wouldn't
Oh
he? He
yeah,
was
for
just
sure. He just
first
yeah,
class.
no
And
question.
and listen, Scott, your show was, you know, you guys broke a lot of rules. I'd say. It's the first time I saw a show that you know, you covered the pro players, you covered kids soccer, you covered female, you covered male, and but you also added an element of comedy.
Right.
You and Helen on the air, you know, and your writing was phenomenal. I always remember. I don't know if you don't mind me talking about you and your show. Um,
If you don't mind
uh,
me crying.
yeah, you know, you know, you wrote some pieces that were like your writing was phenomenal. Like some of the jokes you had me on. Just I always remember you did a Christmas special and you used my son. Um, but step ladder was
Oh,
supposedly
oh,
step bladder, right? Like
yes.
just little things like the way, you know, grape ski. It was supposed
Yes.
to be Gretzky.
Well,
Uh,
you're gonna like this, John, because you inspired me to. Now that I've got the vintage video vault here, after 20 years, it's been in storage, and we finally have it. And one of the specials that we're going to be dropping very soon is that Christmas special. It's called "It's a Wonderful Dive,"
right, right.
and it's basically the moral of the story is eat your vegetables and don't dive. And that's basically it. And I don't even I have not seen it yet because I'm screening 115 episodes. It takes a long time to actually break them down. So we're doing promotions for it, and over the holidays, the world is going to be able to see for the first time in 22 years. It's a wonderful dive. It's pretty ridiculous. It's a pretty ridiculous story. But I remember a gentleman. I can't remember who his name was. Oh, you. You said it was brilliant back in the day,
great.
and I went, really? You really thought so? And I went, okay.
Well, listen, it's a comedy, right? It was
Right.
funny, and the way you change the names,
Rutabaga Hulit.
right, and
Yes.
Cornea Dalglish, and
Yes. Here's okay. I'll tell a little bit a little funny story about that. The one guy that we both know pretty well, and he's a Canadian that got in that special, just because I really like the guy, and plus his name worked, was Gus Kuzmanis, and he became a character Asparagus Kuzmanis, and one night when we were out partying a bit, he gave me the business. He goes, you made me a vegetable. And he was like giving me the business for it. And I'm howling, laughing. And then later in the night, his guys, all his buddies, all the freestylers, Steve Elias, they were giving him the business. You're just a vegetable. I was a vegetable and you weren't. So he was actually arguing for the point. So anyway, it was quite funny. And yes, I had a lady, and Helen was there too. She can be a witness to this at the hangar. I had a woman come up to us before cell phones were around with a camera and said on a phone of some sort. I guess they didn't have cameras on the phones back then. But she was phoning her husband saying, and she said that we were the funniest people on TV.
Right, I thought
soccer show.
you guys were good. I thought you guys were fantastic. Your writing was very good.
Well, most of it was done off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay. So
it was, but we always had a theme. I always believe that if you start the show, it's kind of like a Seinfeld thing. Start the show with a theme and end with the same theme, and try to make some kind of weirdness come out of it.
Yeah.
So it often did. It was surprising how we were able to do it.
Yeah, no, it was good. So you had, the comedy in each episode. You had something funny, but you also got serious, and I thought it was wonderful. And now I see a lot of sports broadcasters adding more and more comedy in their own, just covering the sports.
Right.
But you guys were, in my opinion, one of the first to do that.
Well, yeah, we enjoyed. I mean, we tried to make it as entertaining as possible to get, because we're trying to attract the families, not just the kids playing, right?
Exactly.
It was. That's why we would interview like an entire team together. So those 15 people that have their face on camera, they have grandparents and parents and neighbors.
Yeah.
Wider audience. So we're bringing all that back. So all this stuff that we saw 20 years ago, it's just gold. Some of the stuff, interviews with famous people that we got back in the day. So, and then re-interviewing all the fathers. We have a documentary called The Forefathers of Football. And it's going to be interviews with the forefathers that we talked back in 1999, 2000, in around Junior Hoylett's dad, Julian de Guzman's dad, Paul Stalteri's dad, and Ian Hume's dad, the forefathers of football. And they're going to talk to me, and we're going to look at footage back in the day. This is what we looked like back then. And did you ever expect, like Julian de Guzman's dad, Bobby?
I remember him.
We did it twice. We did the first interview was 1997 about Julian going over to Marseille. And then 2 years later, we just happened to be there when Jonathan gets picked for, was it Feyenoord?
I think
that was his first Dutch. Yeah. I think it was Feyenoord, right? It was a Dutch team.
So.
It wasn't Ajax. It was Feyenoord. That got him over there at 12. So then we go back to have to interview him with Bobby again. It's like, wow, here we are again.
Yeah.
So wow. It's neat because we just talked to Julian and we just did that sit down interview with him. showing him watching the video from 20 years ago,
Wow.
and he had never seen it, right? Because he was over in Europe at the time. So it was kind
Ah,
of neat to see, and how things have changed with Julian, right? One of the
right.
best players Canada has produced in the last 20 years,
Yeah.
goes over to Europe, and then now look at him. What a dynamo in the Canadian national soccer system.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too
Yeah.
bad, when he was doing what he was doing in Spain, nobody really followed that here.
No,
The internet wasn't as it is today.
right,
Even your show, imagine the
right.
reach you would have had just with
That's the
social
thing.
media,
It's an incredibly bad timing. My accident. Get this. So I wrote a book too. It's called Direct Kicks to the World Cup. It's going to be out in a couple months, just in time for the Women's World Cup. And I based. It's funny. I based a lot of the plot around one specific date in my life, and that's the date that it changed my life in soccer. And it was Pele, and you were probably at this game, and it was July 18th, 1975, and he played against Metro Croatia at Varsity Stadium,
Oh
and they were
yeah.
doing bicycle kicks at halftime. And I went, "Oh my God, what are they doing?" And my coach goes, "That's a bicycle kick." And I said, "How do I do that?" He goes, "I can show you." And so I based it like for the next 25 years trying to score a bicycle kick goal and then just retiring. I wouldn't matter where I was, what I did, what team I was on. I would just score and then run to the shower. And I tried for 25, 30 years to score that goal, and I never did. So I
Right,
wrote the book, and I had this as the theme. And it wasn't until I did research after, and I went, "Oh, I better get the dates right."
right, right.
30 years to the day of my accident. July
Oh,
18th,
wow,
2005 was my accident. And I had
wow,
based the whole book on this date. And it wasn't until
wow,
it's like, "Oh my God, the exact date." Well, 30
wow.
years later.
30
So,
years
yeah.
later. Wow,
But that, I
interesting.
mean, so, because at first I was basing it a lot on, wow, in about 25 years after that date, I was able to interview Pele. And we
Right.
have a very unique interview with Pele, probably the most unique interview Pele's ever done. And I say that seriously. If you see how we perform that interview and the look on his face, it's incredible. And
Wow.
yeah, so he was a big influence. He probably was with you, right, Pele?
Yeah, so that's funny enough. The game that you were talking about, Varsity Stadium, I actually wrote an article on that, and I
Oh,
think it
yeah.
was published in Futsal. Do you remember Futsal?
Oh, yeah.
Orville Reynolds
Oh, yes.
ran that.
Yes.
So he wrote that article, and in that particular game, I became a fan of Pele, but also Dick Howard, um,
Right. Yeah.
because Dick Howard really stood on his head and he stole the show really.
Hmm.
Everyone came to see Pele, but at the end, I wanted to be a goalkeeper, you know,
Oh,
because
wow.
he made so many great saves, and even
Yeah.
though they scored 4 goals, I thought the referee blew the game personally.
Mm.
Toronto goes up 1-0 in the first 10 minutes, and then 2-0 against world champion Santos. At the time, they were world club champions, and then in the 40th minute or 38th minute or whatever, the referee gave Miguel Perichon, which was played for the Metros Croatia, a red card.
Mm.
And here we are trying to play against the best team in the world with Pele,
Right.
with a man down, and of course they went on to score 4-2. And if you remember that game, there was a penalty kick with Pele taking it, and the story Dick Howard always told me was that he went up to Pele and shook his hand. You probably heard this one
Yeah.
before. He shook his hand and wished him good luck.
Nice.
Pele was shocked. He scored 1,000 goals, and someone's wishing him good luck in a penalty kick. Only a
Yeah.
Canadian would do that. Of course, Pele buried it in the corner, but
Yeah.
and then Pele, I think, and Dick met a few times later, a few years later, and there's another story on that I'll tell you. But uh, Pele said, "You that crazy Canuck, you know, I scored 1,000 goals. That psychological thing isn't going to work on me." Um,
Yeah.
so Dick invited me to, I think Mastercard brought Pele in to promote one of the World Cups. I
Right.
forget. So I was there, and I wanted to get an autograph with Pele. But Pele, he's unique when he signs an autograph, whether it's a 10-year-old kid or a 7-year-old guy or whatever. He asks him questions and it takes them a while to go through the line. So time ran out. So I said to Dick Howard, so I had the program of the next game with Dick Howard's great saves and Pelly's great play. So I had the program. Dick Howard signed it for me. I says, and he told me I'm going to be having lunch with Pele after this for TSN. So I
Nice.
says, oh man, I tried to get him an autograph. He says, oh, I'll take it for you. I'll get him to sign it. So I got this program of that game. It
Nice.
was a week after with Pele's autograph and Pele and Dick Howard's autograph.
Wow.
And Dick Howard, another first class
Oh,
individual as well.
yeah. I mean,
First
there's a
class.
lot of
But
them, and I was going to mention, yeah, when you mentioned Dick's name, it's like, wow. We went down to St. Kitts with Dick, and what a trip that was. That changed the landscape of direct kicks. That particular trip. That's the
uh,
one trip that allowed us to get around the world. And
wow,
yeah, it was
nice.
really important. And he was a huge, I mean, he was so good to us. So yeah, just another Brit that comes over to Canada, and goalie, right?
Goalie.
That
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
keepers, eh?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of neat, that we have, this history, and now, I mean, Tony was the guy that helped us in '86, right? So, and again, it's so sad that he wasn't here to watch, what we had, in 22, but it was exciting, and like you said, we did pretty darn well, and I think that he would be proud looking down, and certainly anybody that's been around the, soccer world in Canada, like Dick Howard, must be, salivating at our even our future. But let's before I want to. You mentioned about, the NSCAC. Just to tell the folks a little bit about that, and how you got involved with that with Tony and the other people.
Yeah, so NSCAC stands for National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada. It's a volunteer group to try and uh, add additional educational opportunities for coaches. We don't run licenses or diplomas or anything like that. We do little seminars and webinars, and we did a convention once, and just to help coaches, brush up on their coaching skills. And so it was based on the NSCAA, which stands for National Soccer Coach Association of America, which Tony was representing Canada as Region 9.
Okay.
So for years, Tony was representing Canada, and then the Americans said, "Why don't you start your own association?" And so so Tony says, "Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Rather than Region 9, we'll be we decided NSCAC." So Tony recruited myself from Ontario, Gary Miller, Marv Diedrichs, who was from BC, and Percy Hoff from Saskatchewan. So it was five of us that got together, and they arranged a meeting in Vancouver, Saskatoon, Edmonton, and Toronto to form the association, and that's how it started. So if you look at the U.S. association, I mean, they got 30,000 members, they got full-time staff, they're huge. They run a convention in a different city every year. So in
Right.
2023, it'll be Philadelphia.
Okay.
2024, it'll be Anaheim. And it bounces around between East Coast, West Coast, and then they go to Kansas and Chicago. So every year they go to one of these five cities, and they get 10, 15,000 people there,
Yep.
and they have booths and exhibits, and then they have coaching sessions on the field and the lectures. So that's how NSCAC started. It was the Americans that got us kick-started, and Tony was our president, and we haven't replaced him as president since he passed away. But we with COVID, we haven't had a lot of chance to do too much except these webinars, which we run every once in a while. And we do have people coming on from all over the world listening to our webinars. And we'll talk about something Canadian sometimes, or sometimes a system of play, or whatever. So um, yeah, that's the NSC. So to become a member, nscac.ca.
Okay. Yes, because, that's very important. And who is it for? Who should be signing up for this? Because it's important that coaches do. But who else? Is there just coaches, or
I
tell us
think
how we?
yeah, mostly coaches. I think most of the stuff we do is coaching related. If you're just a player, are you going to be interested in joining a coaching association? Nah, I don't know if it's going to have a lot of value for you unless you want to become a coach down the road.
Sure.
Yeah, it's mostly for coaches, even recreational, right up to the highest levels. And we do have, ex-national team coaches as members. Um, yeah, it's a tough battle
Sure.
trying to get coaches to sign up. It's tough, as you know, in Canada, finding sponsors and all that stuff. So
Sure.
yeah,
Well, whatever we can do to help spread the word, we'll do that for you, John. And you do great work. And it's a great association. I mean, Tony started it, but he obviously knew that you guys had the backbone and passion to be able to take it to the next level. So anything that we can do from this end, we'd be more than happy to do it. And I'd also like to mention that, when you talk about the humor of our show and the entertainment value of our show, one of the reasons why it became popular was that we brought in young guests and young hosts, and one of them was one of the funniest young men, turned into from a young kid to a really popular social media activist, I guess you'd call him, an influencer.
Women's soccer is one of the world's fastest growing portion of the sport. And let me tell you, I like the ladies. Relax, boy.
Tell us a little bit about how Joseph is doing, your son Joseph, and what a lad he is.
oh, thanks, Scott. Well, you certainly helped him out with getting me excited about being behind the camera, and also, the editing portion, because that's what he ended up doing in his professional career. He went to Ryerson and in radio and television, and is doing he's doing editing, producing, directing. He's got a whole bunch of pilot shows. It's mostly comedy, so he fit in with what you were doing, making it fun for people, not too serious, and just comedy. He
Sure.
likes comedy, right? And so you really inspired him that way, and so I thank you for that. But so that's his professional career right now, and he's got a whole bunch of different projects. He just got hired by a company that's trying to promote a pilot. They're doing a pilot episode for a cooking show.
Mm-hmm.
He was just in Hawaii and Vancouver filming
Right.
that,
Notice that.
and so that'll come out. The what do they call the trailer will come out.
Sure.
The full episode won't come out till 2023.
Right.
At the same time, he's doing, because he worked for the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bills, and he met co-workers from the U.S., so he's comparing U.S. versus Canada.
Yes, very popular.
Right? So, for example, he would talk about coffee crisp, let's say, chocolate bar, and his American co-worker, what's coffee crisp? And that would start a conversation, and bagged milk, I think, is another one.
Hello, welcome to a very special episode of the vlog, because today I'm in front of a Canadian grocery store, No Frills, with my non-Canadian friend, Mr. Jason Holler. Come on in here. There he is. Jason has never been inside a Canadian grocery store. So we thought, let's go to No Frills, which is a big Canadian grocery store chain, and see what the differences are. Ultimate goal is to find...
And so he's been hired to do, for example, he's on his way to Calgary to do a show in Calgary. So the city of Calgary's bringing him in to promote the city. He's going to see a Calgary Flames hockey game.
Nice.
You've seen some of those.
Yeah.
They try and keep it light, and he's also the Rules of Roommates is another pilot he tried to do. And I thought that was quite good. It's like a Seinfeld type of comedy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
you were very inspirational in that. So I thank you for that, and he's got a good career. He's
well, that's right.
He's won a few Emmys in there too.
Oh, just a handful, eh? That's so incredible. And I always have to update the number. It's really silly. But it was so neat because your other son Marco would be part of the gig too. And Joseph was so outgoing and wanted to say something in the camera, and Marco just had no interest whatsoever, and it made it so funny because it was like, for me, and I mentioned it in my book, is they're like the Penn and Teller of soccer. One didn't say anything; he just rolled his eyes at the other brother, and it was hilarious. So yeah, it really worked, and it's so nice to see that, the stories that we have of the young kids that actually were on the show. It's quite remarkable. And Joseph obviously has the most amazing. I mean, at this point right now, it's 8 Emmys, I think. It's like, what the heck?
I think it might be 10. I'm not sure.
Oh my! Well, okay. Oh, sorry. That was an update from last
He's
week.
got so many. He's given me one here too.
Is that right, eh?
Play
Oh,
at
okay.
home. Yeah.
I'm not asking for any more than 3. I just want 3 just to fill out the vintage video vault.
Yeah.
And it can have his name on it, but if it just looks like one that I've won, then that's good enough for me. So I'm going to negotiate with your son. So listen, there's so much more to talk about. I'd love to do an entire show on Dick Howard. He's so amazing because we're going to talk to everybody that we talked to back in the day and get this thing back rolling. But before we go, I think that it's only fitting that I kind of crush you.
Okay.
On soccer rapid fire trivia. What do you think?
Oh no. Okay.
It's time for rapid fire trivia.
I remember that. That was good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it is. Yes, soccer rapid fire trivia, the original. And everybody at home, either stretch before or buckle up. Either one. Okay. You ready, John? Okay. According to in-depth soccer research, what chocolate bar gets best footy results? Mr. Big, Mars, Crunchy, or Score?
Oh my gosh, Mars.
Oh, Corny comes out. Oh, see, he wrote a book about scoring and he picked Mars.
Oh my gosh.
Corny comes out for the first time.
Because all the penalty kicks I've been talking about. They're shooting for Mars.
That's it, right? But you still got Corny to come out.
Okay,
sorry about that. Speaking of great tasting TV, name the Direct Kicks Christmas special that the president of the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada called Brilliant.
It's that one, A Wonderful Dive.
That's right, correct.
Okay.
It's A Wonderful Dive. What a beautiful, classic holiday special for everybody to sit down and laugh at. Number 3. The first 9 seconds refers to a brilliant soccer book about scoring or Scott's unfortunate sex life.
Oh my gosh. What's the last 9 seconds? So much Scott's life.
Sorry. I knew that. Okay, so you got that one right. Name the Welsh scoring legend who needs to slow down a bit.
Scoring legend, Welsh. Gareth Bale?
Oh, no. Corny comes out. Ian Rush.
Oh,
Ian Rush. He has to slow down because he's rushing a little bit too much.
Sorry, I didn't know he was Welsh.
I hope I'm right there. Okay, so follow up. Name the Canadian international discovered by European scouts at the Ian Rush Youth Tournament.
Oh my gosh. I would not know that. Probably.
It happened back in the year 2000.
Guzman?
No. Corny comes out again. That would be Junior Hoylett. Junior Hoylett was discovered at the Ian Rush. We were there. That's how I first met him. Yeah. So Junior Hoylett's dad, Dave Sr., was very accomplished at what sport? And it's not soccer. That's a tough one. Not many people know that. So
probably sort of track and field is what I can think of.
Corny. Corny's niblets. Corny's niblets are really getting buttered right now because the answer is basketball. He was he's really short. Like, sorry, he's my height. So
right.
Yeah, but he's a really good player.
Okay.
True or false? For good luck before each game, Harry Kane shaves his left armpit and right leg, and for every away game, he shaves his right armpit and left leg. True or false?
That's got to be false.
That's correct. It's false. I just made that up.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, that's pretty gross, eh? Okay, you'll know this one. Whose ponytail was all the rage in the late 1990s? Whose ponytail?
Ponytail. That was Baggio.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes, because if you didn't get that right, that would be Garbaggio.
That's not good, eh?
No, you're Italian, aren't you?
Yes, back there.
Seriously. If you had got that wrong, I'd get Roberto Baggio to come out and give you a yellow card. That wouldn't cost much. Okay. Question number 9. What is not a World Cup winning year for Italy, since you're Italian? 1934, 38, 70, or 2006?
Which 70.
correct, because they were finalists.
They lost to Brazil.
Good one. Yes. Okay, question number 10, and let's see if we can get this before Corny comes up. He's getting tired.
No.
His ears are just burning right now.
Good
Okay, name the first woman to ref a men's World Cup game.
Oh, geez, I would not know that. Although it happened just recently.
It just happened recently.
It happened, and I think she was French, if I'm not mistaken.
You've got half of it right.
But I don't know her name.
No. So you got an eyeful, but not a mouthful. Stephanie Frappart.
Okay.
Frappart.
Good.
Yes, from France. So you got the country. So
Yeah.
you did pretty well. I can't remember how many times Corny came out, at least 4 times or something like that. But that's all right, because you know what? We'll take the niblets and we'll put them in the soccer stew.
There you go.
There you go. We've completed not only the show, but a delicious treat for all soccer fans.
Great.
And this has been a treat for us, man. It's been so long since we've been able to do this. And this is going to be one of many times, because I want to get on your show Behind the Bench and start chatting with you lads too, because it's such a great time of not just the year, time of of soccer for the next 23 in the summer. Then we get 26, right? So
We're definitely going to have you. You're invited anytime, and I think you'll be a great guest.
oh, that'd be awesome. I can't wait to stir it up a little bit, like the stew that we've made today. So I really appreciate all the time that you've given us today, and all the work that you've done for soccer in Canada, man. You should be in the Hall of Fame, my friend. You've done more work than people know, and they need to know that. And we're going to try to help get people to know that. So yes, coaches out there, make sure that you support the NSCAC. And do everything you can to support what Johnny's doing. So once again, John, great talking to you, and we'll see you next time.
Nice
Okay.
to see you back, Scott.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. I really appreciate all your time. And that is a wrap-up of our show, Direct Kicks. Wow, that was a lot of fun. John was an amazing guest. And we'll see you next time. And make sure, eat your vegetables and no diving. Watch our Christmas special. It's a wonderful dive. It's a wonderful show. We'll see you next time.